welcome back to the show, everyone. For those of you that are new, my name's Jeff Hansher. And if you've listened to the show or if you're new, I want to remind everybody that I'm on a mission to help everybody lead, inspire, and win in this life. If you're an avid listener, you've heard me say on this show numerous times that your life can be changed by what you consume and who you surround yourself with. A few months ago, I had the opportunity to share the stage with our guest today at a leadership development event here in Pittsburgh. And when I heard him speak, I knew very quickly that he was someone that I wanted to be attached to in some way, shape, or form. I want to tell you a little bit about Paul Martinelli. Although his early years were tough, they are what gave him the fortitude to push forward and become who he is today. Just a few years after leaving high school and with only $200 in a used vacuum, he founded At Your Service Cleaning Company. This was the first business he built into a multi-million-dollar business and sold it. And he has since created and built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. His latest being the co-founder of the John Maxwell Team, a globally recognized public speaking and training organization with over 20,000 members. Many of you listening know well about that program. Now, Paul spends the majority of his time studying, teaching, and applying the principles of human potential, including leading the Empowered Living community, which is a social media following of more than 2.3 million people. He has shared the stage with such personal development masters as John Maxwell himself, Seth Godin, Les Brown, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Wayne Dyer, Brian Tracy, Dennis Waitley, and Zig Ziglar. And he offers courses in coaching, in masterminds. He does speaking engagements for groups and individuals, just like you listening, that are seeking personal growth. He helps businesses and helps people with overall fulfillment. Paul Martinelli, I just want to welcome you to the Champion Forum podcast.
Wow, thank you so much. This is awesome to be here. And how cool is it for me to hear somebody with a Pittsburgh accent?
Paul, people that don't know it,
has a Pittsburgh accent.
I'll throw a couple yins out there if we're not
Good,
careful,
I'm with you.
Right? Yeah, sometimes when I'm traveling, people ask if I have a Southern accent because they don't know where the accent is from. But if you're a true Yinzer, you know.
1 second. It's funny because I now live in Florida, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. Because so many people, have come, and I can be at a diner and a waitress come up and I just say, Monroeville, where are you at? Where are you from? How do you know? Like, you just tell, right?
You just know. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. That's great. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that warm introduction, and I'm really excited to be here. I just love people who love people.
Yeah.
And you've got a heart to serve, and I know your heart is to help people, and let's do what we can in the short amount of time we have to do that.
Yeah. Like I opened with, Paul, I had known about you. I had known your accomplishments with the John Maxwell Team. I'm an avid follower of John's. So I knew you from that. But when I got to hear you speak in Pittsburgh, man, it just resonated. And I don't say that flippantly. I think there's a lot of amazing people that have influenced me, but then there's people that resonate with you. And it's more about not what they've done, but who they are. And I was telling my wife on the ride home from that event, man, I got to find ways to connect with Paul Martinelli. Your story just truly resonates with me. That journey from, what seems like desolation and there's no end in sight of what could go wrong to having somewhat of a life of success. And you're somebody, I opened with it. You're somebody that is where I aspire to be. And so I know that I've gotten a lot in the short amount of time that I've met you. I'm looking forward to getting truckloads more, hopefully. But I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of it as well. And, you're widely known for your achievements. There's no question about it. We talked about some of the people, some of the greats, the generals that you've shared this stage with, that we had just referenced in the opening. However, not many people listening may know the journey that you had to go through to get to where you are today. Would you mind sharing some of those early challenges that you faced and how it led you to that cleaning business and all the work you did on Sarah Street in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, you bet. Well, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to do so. And yeah, think about it. I'm 56 years old. I shared the stage 3 times with Zig Ziglar.
Amazing.
I mean, just like very few people my age, he was the greatest of the greats, and very few people my age had an opportunity to go from audience to stage with him. And
Yeah.
I'm so blessed. Of all the timing I've had in the world, I think that was probably one of the best, right? To be with Wayne Dyer and Zig Ziglar. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I grew up in a single family home. My father left when my mom was 3 months pregnant with me, and the home of my upbringing was not a safe place, Jeff. It wasn't safe emotionally. It wasn't safe physically. It wasn't safe verbally. In today's world, my mom probably would have been arrested for child abuse. I remember being sent to the nurse in 3rd grade with a black eye and a fat lip, and a child today, right? And the impact of that, I didn't understand at the time. See, I grew up with a really terrible speech impediment. I still stammer today, but I stuttered terribly. If I spoke, I spoke like this. And I didn't realize that most people who stutter don't have a neurological reason for stuttering. Usually it's an emotional situation. And for me, I was so filled with anxiety from fear. Like when I would come home from school, not knowing who's going to be on the other side of that door, that it presenced itself in my speech. And, we are all influenced by the dominant culture of influence in our lives, the other 5 and 6-year-olds in the playground of life. And none of us gets off the playground of life, for free. I mean, there's a price we all pay, right? Yeah. And, we are programmed at a very early age that if there's any difference between you and I in our physical characteristics, then somehow we're separate, right? The difference is separation. And, for some kids, they were tall and skinny, and that's what they got picked on for. Other kids were short and round, and that's what they got picked on. Some kids had ears, some kids had, freckles. For me, it was that I stuttered. And so the kids had a field day with that, right? So they would holler across, the playground, hey, the dummy, hey, stupid. And I didn't know the impact. I didn't realize that in that moment, my self-belief, my self-identity was being created, right? Yeah. And our self-identity is a composite of our self-image, the image we hold of ourselves, and we believe others see us, how others see us, and our self-esteem, our personal self-regard, how I value me, right? And so I developed a brilliant learning strategy at a very early age to marginalize and diminish myself, to make myself small, right? And to hurt myself in front of you so you wouldn't wound me, right? So I would make fun of myself. I would tell a joke that, when God was handing out brains, I was first in line, but then I had to hold the door. Because see, in 1970, when I was growing up, a speech impediment was considered a learning disability. Yeah. And so I was labeled learning disabled. I was not learning disabled. And for most of us, we've been programmed to believe that, our path is going to be determined by our environment and our DNA. And the interesting thing is, I've got 2 older brothers and an older sister. So same DNA, same environment. We went to the same schools. We had some of the same teachers. We went to the same, Catholic church, St. Bernard's Church, right? We were altar boys, right? My one brother graduates Carnegie Mellon University with a PhD in engineering. My other brother graduates from University of Pittsburgh with a degree in microbiology and becomes an Apache helicopter pilot. They don't pick the dumb ones to fly Apaches. Right. My sister graduated #1 Meadville in Allegheny for nursing, and I failed out of school. Yeah. And the only difference is that I believed that I was going to be dumb and stupid. And the power of belief is belief drives behavior, and our beliefs are created through either spaced repetition of time, being introduced to an idea, concept, or belief over and over and over again until it becomes fixed, or an emotional sudden impact where something happens to us. And in that moment, we define the meaning of that. This means that. And so I spent the first half of my life. I mean, when I started a cleaning business at 22, I didn't start cleaning the business because I wanted to be Mr. Clean. I figured, any dummy could clean the toilet, and I was any dummy.
Right.
And, through the grace of God, literally through the grace of God, one day when I was out cold calling, I walked into a business, and a gentleman there just an angel. His name was Patrick Hayes. His
Mhm.
father was the chief legal tax attorney for Exxon, at the time, the largest corporation in the world. His brother ran the trading desk for Lehman Brothers on Wall Street. And he was about a 45-year-old retired municipal bond trader who was worth a couple of $100 million, and he had made it. And so he was just going to mentor people. And I walked in the door and he gave me a book, Think and Grow Rich,
Mhm.
and changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard you talk about, I believe it was 2 or 3 years that you spent with Patrick Hayes, and he introduced you to the book. I think you still have the same copy, if I'm not mistaken.
You bet I do. Yeah.
You know, I've heard you say that you read that book once a year. Obviously, it's out there. You teach on the book as well, and you captured those principles. And I talk a lot in our community about the importance of getting around the right people that can take you places that otherwise you couldn't go. And I'm a product of that. You're a product of that, Paul. You know, I grew up in gross poverty. You know, I go to the military. I'm running from something, not to something. And I landed Cintas Corporation, you know, just I thought it was just going to be a seasonal job until I could get back to college from taking care of my mom. And I run into one leader after the next that saw potential, started drawing that out, which is why I'm so passionate about leadership. And for you, that person at the time was Patrick Hayes.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about what transpired over that time that helped create a foundation for those listening that are like, man, I need to find this mentor? Now, you kind of just fell into Patrick, but what happened during that course of time that you could tell the listener, these are things that you need to draw from mentoring?
Yeah. Well, I think, you have a responsibility as the mentee, right, in the relationship. And, whatever you need to do, proximity is power. And life is a fight for territory.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you've got to do to get close, when you identify that person, when that person has the character and value traits that you respect and honor, and has the life that you want to live in at least the area that you're focusing on, then you do whatever you've got to do to get proximity, right? Yeah. And it was not convenient for me to be with Patrick for 3 years. I was building a commercial cleaning company. I was working day and night, and he was relentless in his mentoring. I mean, he would give me something to do, and he would expect me to do it. Yeah. And the rule was the minute I stopped doing it, he stopped telling me what to do. And here's the interesting is I say that Patrick never really taught me what to think. He knew nothing about the cleaning business. He never told me anything about how to advertise, how to hire, how to price, nothing. He never taught me what to think. He taught me how to think. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, thinking is the highest function of which we're capable of. It is how everything you see has been created twice. It first started as an idea in your thinking. Everything has as its ancestry thought. It's what separates us from a horse and a pig. Everything else you can find in a horse and a pig. Mm-hmm. But it's our capacity to think into an emerging future and to think beyond condition and circumstance. And for most people, we think in reverse. We think from condition and circumstance to thought. That, when we have an idea that comes into our mind, the first thing we do is we look for evidence in our results. Well, there's going to be no evidence in your results. Right. The idea didn't come from there. Right. There's only one source of supply. That, there's a reason why we say we've been inspired. Yeah, it comes from the Latin, in spirit. So we've been inspired. It's when the finite mind of man communicates with the infinite mind of God, and you have an idea. Boom. Yeah. And then we look for evidence of our potential or evidence of results. There is none. Right. And what we try to do is we try to make this new idea fit into this puzzle we're building. It's never going to fit. It's a new piece. It's a starting point of a new puzzle. And so what Patrick did was Patrick had this innate ability to just say, I used to hate it. He said, that's interesting. That's interesting. So I would say, I can't do something because, and he would just look at me and say, that's interesting. It's interesting that, that's what you're going to fight for. It's interesting that that's the side that you've taken in this,
So he would kind of guide you.
Oh, Yeah, what he would do is he would challenge the conviction of my belief. What he would ask me, what has fortified your belief that you can't make $1 million?
Right.
Well, I'd say, well, because I'm a high school dropout. He said, well, have you studied other high school dropouts? As statistically, I think if you study it, Paul, I think you'll find that statistically, if you want to become a millionaire, drop out of school.
Yeah.
It works for lots of people.
Yeah.
So he would just challenge me to think.
Yeah.
Just
I remember one thing that I wrote this down because since meeting you, I've listened to a lot of your content. And I remember hearing you tell a story about Patrick saying to you something to the tune of, if you want something different, you have to do something different. Yeah. And he was talking about how you were trying to create a competitive advantage by modeling what your competitors were doing. And it kind of changed how you became a competitor, an obvious choice in your space. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of mentoring, isn't it? Is that, I mean, look, you can tell people what to do all day long, but that's catching fish for them. When you can change somebody's way of thinking, now they are fishing on their own. And that's what great mentors do. But to your point, I think the mentee plays a big part in that.
Yeah. And, you're looking for a mentor who is going to challenge you and allow you, I think what you want is you want a mentor who believes what you believe, but thinks different thoughts.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Patrick just thought from a different frequency. He was at a completely different level of awareness. And to have a mentor who's going to challenge, not only is this the very best thing for you to do, or will this idea work, but is this, will you be able to sleep with this for the next 20 years? Yeah. Will you be able to sleep with this for the next 20 years? I remember there's a time in my cleaning business, I had an opportunity. I got a call from the Yellow Pages of a strip club to go clean a strip club. And I remember talking to Patrick, and Patrick just said, you got to sleep with that. Right. You got to sleep with that. Is that, you're trying to, there's a part of your life where you're trying to reconnect with God, and you're trying to, start this walk with God. Is that the path you want to walk? Right. Slippery slope. Yeah, real slippery slope. Are you going to go, you're going to go in and train in that place, and then you're going to start hanging out in that place, and you're going to go collect your money from that. Do you want, do you want that in your client list? Yeah. Or do you want to send your employees there, right? You want to send your employees there. Do you want their money in your account? Yeah, right. And, so to be challenged, not only, in making money or, making money, once you learn it, making money is a very easy thing to do. It's very easy to do. The harder part is walking the talk and living your values, right? There's no doubt. And you said this earlier, and while we're on the subject of mentoring and people that can shape who you are, you mentioned this proximity is power. And maybe the most profound thing that I've heard you talk about in relation to this, and it's out there, you've spoke about it, so it's not a secret, but you tell the story about Bob Proctor and how you met Bob, and you paid a great deal of money to be coached by Bob, a great deal of money. Yeah. And you talk a lot about proximity is power. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about that Bob Proctor example and what kind of doors that opened for you, not only professionally, but what you learned from it that would take you into the future? Yeah, thank you. Because there was, and Bob just recently passed. Right. And so it's kind of a still tender topic, but I think there's a couple of things here in that there will be times when you have an opportunity. There'll be times when you have an opportunity and where you have to really evaluate this opportunity against everything else you've already had. There will be times where it will be this opportunity versus everything else that you know up until now. You had that. Yeah, you faced that moment, Jeff, where everything you know and have. And you're in one of those moments when everybody around you questions your sanity. Oh my. That's a good sign that you're there. And I had met Bob and got certified to teach Bob's content. And I was doing that and my business was growing. I got a call from Bob and he said, look, do you want to partner with me? And I said to Bob, I said, well, I got my cleaning business and it's going really well. And he said, look, he said, you could be doing what you're doing right now. And, you're pretty good. In about 10 years, you'll be pretty big in Florida. Or you can partner with me and I'll put you on the world stage. I'll open doors for you. And I thought, okay. And one of the conditions was that I had to sell the cleaning company. In other words, he wanted all of me, not some of me.
Yeah.
I sold the business and I paid him $300,000, which was a lot of money because after, I sold the cleaning company for $1 million, you pay taxes on that.
Right.
And then I put some money down on an oceanfront condo and then the rest went to Bob.
Yeah.
And it was through that relationship with Bob that I got to meet Zig and Wayne Dyer and Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy and Dennis Waitley and all of everybody, right? I would not be, had I not made that decision. That proximity just opened doors for me. And then I think another important part is when to leave, and I think most people overstay.
Yeah.
I think,
I went through that. I left a great career, a company that I beloved, but I could not shake this anymore. I had to go. People thought I was absolutely crazy, including myself. Like, you grew up poor. Look what all you have. Why would you throw that all away? But now I'm looking back on it, and no disrespect to Cintas or any of the leaders, but I overstayed because I was becoming discontent. I could feel it. And you talk about this, not many people are going to get that proximity maybe that you've gotten, which ultimately led to how you met John Maxwell. But not everybody's going to have those doors open, but maybe they will. Yeah. How does the person listening, how do they get to this proximity as power? How can they take action on that?
Well, I think, proximity isn't convenient. And see, most people just don't want to be inconvenienced.
True.
And most people don't want to be uncomfortable. Proximity, there's no comfort in proximity. It wasn't comfortable for you to do what you did.
No.
It's not comfortable. It's not convenient. The time is never right for it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so you have to, look, we're either, kind of led by the feather or hit with a 2x4. Right. But when there's two energies we feel. One is a longing and another is what you just described as discontent. Mm-hmm. Right. So there's a longing for us to be pulled forward. And then there's a discontent where we're being pushed out. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think what you have to do is you have to fight for proximity. You have to identify who do I want proximity to? And then how do I get in? And one of the greatest ways I teach people to get in is, for me, there's nothing you can give me. Okay. There's nothing you can give me. You can't give me anything that I don't already have. I probably have an experience or I couldn't buy for myself. So, doing something for me, forget it. Find what I love and support what I love. Like, go down and volunteer at the Association for Retarded Children.
Yeah.
You'll get on my radar.
Yeah.
You'll get on my radar pretty damn quick.
Yeah. Do
something for Fellowship of Christian Athletes with my niece, Lydia, and support her work. You'll get on my radar pretty quick. You know what I mean? And so I think, in terms of proximity, you've got to be creative, right? You've got to be creative and you've got to find your way in. And for most people, you'll find, contrary to what, the left media will tell you, rich people are pretty damn good people.
They really are.
We tend to give lots of money away in a really passionate, smart way. In other words, we don't just kind of write a check and we're not involved. If money's involved, I'm involved. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if I'm donating $100,000 to a charity, I'm involved. You know what I mean? I want to see the P&L, Yeah. And so I think one great way is find that person that you really want proximity to. Find what they love. Mm-hmm. And serve what they love.
That's so good.
You will be on their radar that quick. Guaranteed.
It's amazing that you say that, because I'm thinking about, for me, I have Paul Martinelli on my podcast. For me, that's amazing to me. And I think about how that all transpired. It was through a mutual friend who introduced me to David McLennan and said, you need to meet this guy. He's a sharp guy. I met him at a conference. He's in Pittsburgh. You should connect. We connected, and David and I have been like kindred. And he asked me to speak at his first emerging leaders event. And he said, how much do you want to do it? And I said, I just want the opportunity. That's it. I have a feeling you're going to help me more than I can help you. Because I was quitting the next day at Cintas when I did his first event. I go to do the second event, and he says, hey, you know, your pants have gotten a lot bigger since the first event. How much do I owe you? And I said, there's no charge. And here, I didn't even know at the time, Paul Martinelli was going to be at this event. We're at a VIP event. I get to have some conversation. I'm going to be with you in Atlanta. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I've already been impacted. And it's because of proximity. So we have to find those ways to open those doors and claw and scrape and not be fake about it either. And just, well, how can Paul serve Jeff Hancher? How can Paul serve me? I'm here to serve, not to be served. Amen. And I think as a listener, we really gotta own that, because I mean, sure, we want everybody to just hand it to us, but there's got to be something that you give. And I love that about you as well, Paul, which is why you're on the show today. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, there has to be a transfer of value, right?
Yeah.
Got to be a transfer from the mentor, So there's this idea that, what the mentor does is they see potential in you, right? Potential is one of those things we can't see in ourselves. We can see in other people, but we can't see in ourselves. And we don't have to go long in our day to see potential in other people. I mean, go to a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts, watch the 10-person crew, and you'll find the sharp one in the box pretty quickly. For sure. And then you wonder, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
And they can't see their potential.
Right.
Yeah. They should be running their own coffee place. Why are you working? You should open up right next door, Jill's Coffee or David's Coffee, right? You should open up right now, because you'll kick the butt of Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. Trust me.
Back to mentoring. Sometimes you need people to call that out.
Yes.
You actually said this when we were together. You said kind of mentoring and leading is kind of like somebody that has bad breath. Their nose is so close to their mouth and they don't know their best things. Somebody has to tell them. So there's a high calling into mentoring and leading. Yeah. Paul, there's a big demographic of new leaders and new entrepreneurs that listen to this show. And when we were together recently in Pittsburgh at the seminar, I heard you speak about borrowed belief. And this just resonated with me, being an early entrepreneur myself. Can you talk a little bit about this and how it can help that new leader or that new entrepreneur transform themselves?
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Jeff. Because, when we think about it, belief drives behavior. Yeah. Belief drives behavior. And so for most people, getting started is I think it might be an Indian proverb that says, once started, half done, right? Once started, half done, because once you start, that's it, right? It's the rocket, right? It's 80% of the rocket fuel is getting off the launch, right? And so where does that belief come from? Well, where can it come from? Well, it could come from within, but boy, rarely do we have the belief to go beyond our current conditions and circumstances. So where else can it come from? Well, it can be inspired. We could have inspired belief. Okay. But usually that belief is tied to blind faith, and blind faith will fail you every single time. Blind faith will fail you if you're going into it like this, the first time the yogurt hits the fan, you're getting sprayed and you're out of the race. But it's on borrowed belief. Mm-hmm. It's when someone else sees potential in you and says, you know what, I'm going to speak life into you. Yeah. Right. I'm going to speak life into you. Life and death begins in the tongue, right? Mm-hmm. In the beginning was the word, the words made flesh. And so I'm going to speak life into you. I'm going to tell you what I see in the hopes that you'll think what I see. Yeah. My prayer is that people would believe what I see in them. You know what I mean? And so one of the greatest things we can do for other people is develop the gift of encouragement, develop the gift of believing in other people. Who are we not to believe in when someone else is capable of? How dare we? How dare we question the inspired idea of God impregnated in the mind of other person? How dare we step in and divide that with
especially as leaders,
how dare we as leaders? The
Yeah.
greatest gift you have as leaders is proximity to those that you lead and your ability to influence them with belief, with your word. It's so powerful.
I think too, it's almost worth saying that if you don't need to borrow somebody's belief, you might not be doing enough. You might not be stretching enough.
Yeah.
I remember going from truck driver to outside sales, and oh my, was that a leap. Like, you had to dress the part. I mean, I didn't know what collar stays were. I didn't know what shoes to buy. I didn't know anything. I mean, they drove the right cars. I was just a blue collar guy.
Yeah.
But man, I had a great leader, Sean, if you're listening. I mean, this guy transformed me as a professional. He would sit in that conference room and role play, and he would call out the greatness. And I'll tell you, Paul, it's why I quit a lucrative career, because now I want to do that the rest of my life. That's the funeral test for me. That's what I want to do. If I can see it and call it out, I want to do it. But if the listener, you're listening today, and maybe you're feeling, I need to make that leap, or I want that promotion, or I'm new, I don't know how I got here. You need to get around people that you can borrow their belief. And if you don't have that, you need to find a way to connect with it. We're not meant to do it alone. And Paul, you've had many of people probably that you've had to borrow their belief in you, maybe like a Patrick or a Bob and so on.
You bet. There's not one thing that I stand on the, shoulders of giants, and there's not one thing that I've accomplished alone. You weren't designed for it. And to be honest with you, how void would the trip be? Before we started, you were sharing about, the people that you're working with on your team and how much you admire them and respect them and appreciate them and value them. How empty would your journey be without those other people on your team?
Wouldn't want to do it.
I mean, why, right? You wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to do it. I mean, I'm blessed. I'm able to work from home. I've got a beautiful home. I've got my team, comes to my office every day, to my house every day. And we look forward to them coming to the house every day. There's a family, there's a friendship. And I think, you have so much value and so much worth that you should be intolerant. You should be intolerant of any environment that isn't conducive to your growth. That if you've got a leader that's not intentionally seeking ways to invest in you and grow you and encourage you and challenge you, leave.
Yeah.
Leave.
It's a waste of time. And I think most people stay because maybe they were like, me in certain in areas that I ended up, obviously I took the risks and I was able to climb, but I can't tell you how many times I was just embarrassed. You're at the training meeting, the corporate training meeting. They're like, hey, tell us where you went to college and blah, blah. And that's when I'd find the bathroom. I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't want to get found out, imposter syndrome, the whole thing. So you need leaders to do that. The other thing that you said that I think could resonate with especially the newer entrepreneurs or the ones that are pursuing maybe even a side hustle, was to get good first, master something. And how has this been displayed in your life? Why is this important? And what are the risks of not doing this?
Yeah, boy, what a concept. I mean, this is a PhD in hard knocks, right here. We mass produce average. We mass produce average in this world. I mean, if you go somewhere and you get exceptional service, like you're taken up, like you can't believe you got exceptional service, right? I mean, if it's half decent, you give it 5-star rating anymore, right? You're blown away. There's very few pros in the world. And so, I call it, kind of like Me Too marketing. When I was in the cleaning business, back in the days where we had yellow pages, I'd spend, $800 a month for, a dollar bill sized full color, ad for the first couple of years, like a ding dong, I wasted money. I put, licensed, bonded, insured. Well, all of my competition could say Me Too, no job too big or too small. Well, Me Too, right? Uniformed employees, Me Too, right? And so I realized, what's unique and special about me, right? What's going to be unique and special about me? How can I be one grade above? What can I do to be better? What can I do to stand out? And it doesn't take much, but it does take something, right? It doesn't take much, but it does take something. It certainly takes intentionality. It takes the law of sacrifice being applied in your life. You get to find something of a greater value over something of a lesser value. It takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes persistence, all of those things. But the rewards are unbelievable. When I first got certified as a coach, I was in a room with 12 other people. We all paid $15,000. We all went home. Everybody else in that class, went and they built websites that made them look like they were Anthony Robbins. I went to my mirror and I stood in front of my mirror and I practiced teaching, and I memorized quote after quote after. I don't know how many. If I got 1,000 quotes memorized, and I memorized paragraphs of books, and I watched speakers, and I would sit there like an NFL team would watch the next day. I would watch Les Brown and watch how he would move, and I would watch their timing, and I would watch comedians, and then I would watch you want to get a PhD in communication? Watch QVC for about half an hour. You'll see some of the best people in the world. You're talking about being able to communicate. I mean, they sell a vacuum cleaner. They sell 7,000 of them in 8 minutes, right? You got to be able to connect, right?
Yes.
And so, and then I went to work on developing my story. You got to get good first. Now, look, you don't have to be, you don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. But once you reach a certain level, like here in the United States, most Americans can't read or comprehend reading past the 8th grade level. Why? Well, we stopped testing reading comprehension in the 8th grade, but by the time you go to high school, your reading comprehension tests are over. That's it. So we never improve on the skill. Most Americans don't read a book. Don't read a book. This year they won't read a book. And so
if it wasn't for Cliff Notes, I wouldn't have made it through high school.
Yeah, me either. Look, the first book I read was Think and Grow Rich at 22 when Patrick Hayes gave it to me. I could read, but why would I?
That's another, it's crazy. I was 22 years old. Sean, who I just referenced, handed me the book Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale.
Wow, what a classic.
First one I ever read. Because I wanted to.
That's a good first book to read.
Yeah. But that, getting good first, and it's a frustrating thing. And I talk about this a lot. You talk about it a lot, Paul, is that it's sacrificing what you want now for what you want most. And, everybody went out, they built the websites, they want the happy hour, they want to go throw darts, and I'm all about having that fun. But like you, in front of the mirror, role playing how to overcome an objection, role playing an interest creating statement, how to perfect, a phone pitch, whatever that might be, ad nauseum, because I wasn't the cut of the cloth. Right. And so I knew I had to outwork everybody. And there was things that I had to do, but the payoff was so great. But why is it then, if the majority of people, that would also, hopefully not everybody listening to the Champion Forum podcast, of course, but why is that? Why is it that if people have the ability, we believe that everybody was born with ability. Why is it? What holds people back? What would you say to the person listening of what is holding them back?
Yeah, well, I would say this. I would think I don't know that we're all born with the ability. I think we're born with the potential. We're born with the potential, and then if we work hard, then we get the ability, right? So the ability isn't a given, but the potential is. So the moment you have the idea, you have the potential to develop the ability to do it, right? So why don't we? Well, Maxwell Maltz in 1960 figured it out. He said, we never outperform our own self-image. The image that we hold of ourselves determines the thoughts we think, the beliefs we hold, and the actions we take. Period, full stop. It's the reason why, a salesperson sets a goal. They're going to sell $1 million worth of product that year. They go out in the first quarter, they bang out $600,000. The next 2 quarters are in a slump. And everybody says, what happened? You were doing so good. I know. What's wrong? I don't know. But you know how to do it. I know. Why are you doing it? I don't know.
Right.
Don't know, right? We don't know why we're not doing the things we know how to do, getting us results that we don't want to get and we don't know how to change. I can remember being called in to do some sales training for a car dealership. And I said, look, I'm not going to, he was asking me, what techniques I was going to teach this. I'm not going to teach your people anything. I'm going to teach them anything about sales. I'm sorry, but I'm under the impression that you've got a sales team that knows how to sell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to help them figure out why they're not doing what they already know how to do. Mm. I'm assuming, has every one of your people sold a car? Yeah. Okay. Then they know how to sell cars. Okay. Now let's get them to know how to do what they already know how to do at peak performance. Right. And so until we change the image that we hold of ourselves, nothing changes. We will default. It's the thermostat thermometer, right?
Right.
You can hold the Bic lighter at the base of the thermometer all you want. It's the thermostat that sets the temperature. Yes. Period. Full stop. And so what we have to do is we have to go in and we have to reprogram what we believe we're worthy of, what we're capable of, what we can do. And as that image slowly begins, see, that's what Patrick was doing for me.
Right.
Patrick was just chiseling away at every limiting belief that held this image that I was dumb and stupid and I was poor and I was destined to be poor and that rich people are evil and all the rest of it. Right. And Patrick just kept, see, there may not be a more profitable statement other than the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Right. And Patrick would illuminate truth in my life and just say, is that true? There's facts and there's truth. The difference, facts change. Not only do facts change, you can change them. But what's your truth, right? And I think for most people, we don't know our truth. We don't know who we are or whose we are.
And that's a perspective. I mean, that is a perspective that you have to grasp. And it's one, full transparency, which I am on this show. I show my stains. One of the things that I know that you work on as well, I heard you talk about the juice recently. I struggle with this poverty mindset at times. I am not hurting for, I don't have needs. We live in a great home. Things are taken care of. And my wife, God bless her, because if it wasn't for her, we'd be living, I don't even know where. But it wouldn't be nice, I promise you. But she's the one that's encouraging me like, hey, we can do this. We can stay at that hotel. It's going to be fine. Right. And that's a limiting belief at times. Now, I have gotten better, but I have to be very, very intentional about it. And there's probably people, whether it is a poverty mindset or mindset in general, that have to overcome that barrier, because who you are today isn't a product of where you were or how you grew up. We have the ability to change. And so what would you say to those people maybe that have these self-limiting beliefs or poverty mindsets? How have you pushed through those battles?
Yeah. I may have shared this when we were together. I'm not wearing it now. I usually wear my Rolex. So I have a presidential Rolex, gold, beautiful. And I bought it when I sold my cleaning company, but I don't like watches, and I don't wear watches. That's why I'm not wearing it today. I mean, I only wear it if I'm speaking. It's truly jewelry, right? It's truly just for show.
Sure.
It's a real one. Don't get me wrong. It's a real one. But here's what I've learned to do. I was at the jewelry store and I was actually looking for cufflinks because, speakers have nice cufflinks, right? So I'm looking for cufflinks. And I walk by the jewelry case and there's, now I love beauty. I love beautiful things, right? My house is filled with artwork from Rome. I love beautiful things. So I see this case of these watches and I say to the jeweler, well, these are beautiful. He says, yes, those are expensive. And in my head and I finished the sentence, and not for you, right? Not for
Right.
me. And in that moment, I said, great, let me see that one. I'll buy it right now. Didn't even look at the price. It was a $25,000 watch.
Right.
And I bought it on the spot. Anytime you see me wearing that watch, grab my wrist, look at it. I guarantee you, wrong day, wrong time, wrong day of the week. I don't even know how to set it. It's never right. It's truly just for look. But it was my right. It was my yuns, right? It was like you jag off to that little voice inside my head calling out, jag off. Life's a fight for territory.
It is.
And I'm not going to give. Here's what I do is whenever you have a doubt, a fear, a judgment, self-judgment come into your own, what you have to do is you have to take massive, immediate action. Now, sometimes massive is really small.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes massive is really small.
Mm-hmm.
Massive to you. Massive immediate action in the exact opposite direction. Yeah. You cannot give it 1 inch. So to this day, if I've got something, if I'm somewhere, and I do it, it happens to me. Like I still read menus right to left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could buy the rest. I could literally buy the restaurant. Right. And I'm wondering, should we get the foie gras? Right? Should I get the foie gras? And so you know what I do? I'll take all the appetizers. Give them all to me. Because I'm going to go nuts on. I'm going to teach that part of me that there's a price it's going to pay every single time it's going to come up. And now I've got it tamed, but every once in a while, when I let my guard down, I'll here on true story. Okay.
Yeah.
True story. I just had a week off. Down here, there's Natalie's juice. It's fresh squeezed. Grapefruit juice, half gallon. I think it's $9.
Yeah.
And I'm at Publix. And I'm grabbing Nature's Own, right? and I'm just like, and that was it. Boom. Back. And to this day, I could have bought all the grapefruit. I could go buy the company if I wanted to, right?
Right.
But it's still, it's saying, are you sure?
Yeah.
So just recognize that when that fear or that doubt, fear is not an indication that you can't or shouldn't. It's an indication that you haven't up until now.
Wow. Up
until now.
That's good, Paul.
Powerful words.
My wife is going to be so grateful that I'm hearing this, and I have gotten better, but I will tell you, and there's somebody listening that is fighting this demon.
It never goes away.
Listen to what Paul's saying. This is a guy that has been where many of us want to go. Fight that demon. Sometimes it's not the big battles. It's the small battles you face every day that create who you are.
It's a great
exactly. Just a couple lightning round questions. And then I want to connect people to your community. Sure. One of the questions I like to ask people so that I can be get better at asking questions. What is the favorite question that you ask people that you admire?
Probably, why do you think that? Why do you think that? It's one of the questions. I want to understand the context of somebody's thinking. So I don't want to know just what they think. I want to know, why do they think that? What's the context behind that, right? Because there's something deeper than what they think. Because lots of people will share their opinion, and you know what? You don't need a result to share an opinion.
True.
I give you an opinion on cattle prices. I don't know nothing about cattle prices. I can give you an opinion.
Sure.
So I want to know, why do you think that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that are great at what they do have a different way of thinking usually.
You bet they do. Different level of awareness. Yeah.
So you've consumed a lot of information in your life. What are some things that you do now after consuming years of information? What do you do now to continue to learn and improve?
I study the classics still. So I'm always reading something by Thomas Troward, James Allen. Every year I read Think and Grow Rich. I do a free study. I've taken as many as 50,000 people through the book at one time. Wow. Through free study. I do a lot of audio books while I work out. And and I'm listening to people's stories. I'm listening to people's stories, and what makes them tick. I'm reading a Black Ops guy named Rick Pardo's book right now. And just what makes him tick. How did he find, how did he find persistence? How did he find determination? What were the things that made him tick?
Yeah, that's so valuable.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Wow. I'm going to say Rush Limbaugh.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you, I met Rush and I only had a half an hour with him. It was 10 seconds. Yeah. One of the most intelligent guys I know. I don't care where you fall on politics. Mm-hmm. The guy has a world vision. He has a vision. He had a vision for the world. He had an understanding of the world. Whether you agreed with his position or not didn't matter. But you certainly couldn't say that he didn't understand the argument.
Right.
And I say him because I missed the opportunity. You know what I mean? I was with him for 30 minutes and it wasn't enough. And I wish I could to do again. Had I known that I would never have had another opportunity to be with him. It's kind of like the first time I went to see the Sistine Chapel, I left on the plane ride home, said, I didn't look at it long enough. Right. And I've been, the last time I was there, I rented it. I rented the Sistine Chapel alone, private, just so for 2 hours, just so I could look at it. Because
you'll never have that regret.
Well, no, of course. I mean, look, if you've never seen it, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. Yeah.
I'll definitely put it on my list.
Absolutely.
Last lightning round question. What are you most proud of, Paul?
Wow. What am I most proud of? Geez, I think being in process. I think that I'm still in process. The fact that I'm not at all satisfied.
Man, that's good.
I'm not at all satisfied. I know there's more, and I love that I still beat myself up. That I love it that I'm not perfect, and I love that I get pissed off because I'm not, and that I lose my temper with my kids or my dog, or that I'm not the best husband, or that I screwed up here, and that it bothers me. Mm-hmm. And I don't ever want.
I love that about your journey too. I think your journey gives a lot of people hope as well.
Well, thank you, my friend.
And I think that's powerful. I want to make sure people know how to connect with you. Obviously, we're going to have a bunch of links in the show notes, so on and so forth. But tell everybody quickly about Empowered Living. This is an amazing community that you have built. I think the concept of it is dynamic. Can you just take a minute and tell the listener about that?
Sure. Empowered Living, it's a Facebook group page. About 2.3 million people from all over the world. These would be people who would identify themselves as agents of change. Some are teachers, some are psychologists, pastors, coaches, speakers, trainers, anybody. It's a community of people that want to encourage and grow and help other people grow. That's who's part of the community. So you'll certainly be able to find me there. Also, Paul at paulmartinelli.net. My website, paulmartinelli.net, and I have a really robust YouTube. My team has done a good job on YouTube, and I so much free content there. I just taught last year, 16 weeks of Think and Grow Rich, an entrepreneur's journey, reading the book as from an entrepreneur's perspective, really good stuff, all for free. Yeah.
Go check that out. And by the way, it's not too late to get to Atlanta for Turning Point. We're going to put this show up so that this gets out to my entire community. I'm going to be in Atlanta at Turning Point. David McLennan, who has been on this show, is going to be hosting Turning Point. Paul is going to be the premier speaker at Turning Point in Atlanta. I will put links up in the show notes for you how to register to that. But I believe that we can get there through David's website as well, correct?
You bet. And it'll change your life. 3 days of peeling the layers of onion kind of back of who you are. If it's been a while since you've taken inventory of who you really are, this 3 days are for you for sure.
Please make a point, invest. Like Paul talked about proximity. Paul talked about investing $300,000 in Bob Proctor, this is not 300,000,
No.
and it's 3 days that will change your life, which is why I'm going. I believe in the teachers that are going to be there, and I believe in the experience. If you can't find the link, just email me, jeff@jeffhancher.com. I will give you all the accommodations information that you need to get to that event. I will be there if you're a part of my community. We're going to be having either a happy hour or a breakfast event, so that we can kind of talk through some of the things that we're learning. So check out the show notes for Turning Point, or email me, jeff@jeffhancher.com, subject line Turning Point, and we'd love to see you there. Paul, anything, last word?
Thank you so much. This has been, I love what you have done here, Jeff. Anytime somebody's committed to helping other people, count me in. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you spending time. Look forward to seeing you in Atlanta in just a few weeks, and really going to enjoy our time together. As far as the listeners, until next week, I want to challenge you all. Take advantage of the show notes that we have. Make sure that you're sharing them with your team. You can get these for every episode by going to jeffhancher.com, signing up for the newsletter. And I'm going to put all the links to today's show in the show notes as well, so you can connect with Paul, get all the highlights. Until next week, keep transforming, keep leading well, and never forget that you all have been set up to be champions in this life.